Good afternoon. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 48. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. What's up, buddy?
Good evening.
Afternoon.
Well, I just figured, like,
Okay,
you
I know
give
what
me
you're
these you give me these weird looks whenever I go long on my thing. So I'm trying to do a little bit more like on brand with the EF stuff.
Okay.
Also, I saw some of Echo's shirts on the Jocko store.
Oh, yeah.
And on the back of them, that's what they say is "Good evening."
Good evening.
Yeah.
Good evening.
I can't find the Aftermath shirt.
It's on Echelon Front's website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's an Echelon Front shirt.
Yeah, that's an EF shirt. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, I'm gonna have to get that whenever I go to the muster here in a couple of months. Which I'm stoked about.
Let's do it. All right. Hey, so we got some really good questions. I know we did this a few weeks ago. We were not able to get to all the questions that people posted on social media. So we're going to jump into those. Okay. So our first one is from @Scott_IN_MN. I'm assuming
Scott in Minnesota.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Scott.
That's what I would think. Right?
So he said, how do you balance your work versus personal life when you travel as much as you do? P.S. You obviously outkicked your coverage with Amanda, but for us average folks, how does one travel approximately 2 weeks, for example, a month, and keep a happy home, assuming children/home life is similar to yours? You know, that's a good question. I get this question often, and I know you and I have talked about it, and you already know the answer. The answer is alignment. I have alignment with Amanda. I have alignment with my kids. When I was first given this opportunity to come on board Echelon Front, and be a part of actually growing the company, not just be an instructor, but growing the company, and being a part of the executive leadership team. The expectations were laid out pretty clear from Jocko and Leif on. In regards to, hey, you're gonna be gone a lot. You're gonna miss a lot of things, and. I'm just thankful that Jocko and Leif had that hard conversation with me, and they didn't sugarcoat it. They're like, it's it's gonna be good, but you might miss some things. Like they were very factual. Like, hey, you are going to miss things.
Yeah.
You are going to miss some of the birthdays of your kids. You're going to miss some of your kids' graduations from kindergarten and sixth grade and stuff like that. You might miss some of your anniversaries or other stuff, but that's only going to be like for a 3 to 5 year window until we have this built out. And then when you build out a team, it'll be another 2 to 3 years of getting your team where they need to be. And, Jocko said, hey, if we do this right at, 8 to 9 years, you should be able to step back and really not have to do much and not have to travel as much and more just be overseeing different programs and pick and choose when you want different gigs. And, we're pretty close to that. We're not at the 8 to 9 year mark. We're at 7.5 years, and I don't see me stepping back in the next year or year and a half. It'll probably be closer to that 10-year mark of where I would really be throttled back. The other part of it is like I really enjoy what I do, and I love being on the road and working with clients. I don't love being on the road and being away from my family, but I love working with the clients. The impact, the value that we drive, it's satisfying. It's very rewarding and fulfilling to be able to sit and work and talk with clients and individuals and companies and help them work through problems using the principles that we use, using leadership to solve their problems and restore marriages and families and people losing weight and all those things that come with it. We have people that have lost. There's a lot of people that I know from Echelon Front in general that have lost 30 to 50 pounds. Like we're talking hundreds of people over the years. I know personally 2 different people that have lost over 100 pounds.
Really?
That's unreal. If you really think about that, losing 100 pounds by taking ownership, being default aggressive, using the laws of combat to just work through their personal problems and their health problems, and being disciplined with their diet and working out, and and fully really taking control over their life. That's a game changer. And so for me, being a part of that and helping people is fulfilling. And my family also, they know that they're a part of that. They know that they're a part of every client that I work with. Sometimes my kid, not so much anymore, but my kids used to like helping me pack for trips, and I'd be like, hey, go grab me some workout clothes and some workout shirts, and hey, I need this many pairs of socks and this many, and so they would do those things, and it would be awesome. And so for me, maintaining that alignment with my wife and kids over the years has been awesome. And also, like, there's been times where we'll take vacations, and that's an earned thing in our family. It's like, hey, I've got to do these things so that we can, buy this house and be able to go do this for, a ministry event, or go, we're going to be able to go do this, or hey, we're investing into this company with this money that we've been earning, and so it hasn't been for nothing. It hasn't been just to be busy. There has been returns on that investment in time that my family has been able to reap the benefits of. And so that it makes it to where it's a doable thing, to where you're like, oh, when dad's gone and he's doing these things, he's helping people, but he's also providing for the family. And when he does these things, these are the benefits that we have as a family.
Yeah. A lot of that sounds like it's also explaining the why
100%
to the family, right?
100%.
That you've got a part of getting alignment, especially with, twin girls, is explaining to them why it's important that dad is gone.
Yep.
And then why it is that you're so intentional whenever you're there, like trying to make the most of the time.
Yeah. And, and it's been good for Aiden, as he's now 18, he understands like, hey, life is going to require you to work hard.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to work hard. And like, I don't mean this in a derogatory, manner towards anybody at all. But I personally, like, when somebody works 40 hours a week, that's awesome, but that's the bare minimum that you should be, you know what I mean? And if you're, a business owner, or, you're a part of a company that's growing and expanding, I mean, you should be putting in 70, 80 hours a week. And I'm not talking like in an office, but I'm talking like work, like you're working at home, you're working through stuff. Because
you're thinking about your business.
Yeah, you're thinking about your business. You're working on your business. You're preparing,
planning
personal development, professional development. All those things. That's part of doing it. And a 12 to 15 hour day, like, okay, cool. Like, that's like, there's no issues with those. Those are actually needed. And, you do a couple weeks of those in a row, and then it becomes a couple months, and then a couple years of those types of days. Like, that's where you actually get your growth. And so for me, I've always had that mindset, you've got to put in the work. But there also needs to be a balance, because you can't just always keep doing that.
Right.
And, it's comical. Like, people will be like, they'll follow certain people on social media, and, they'll be like, I only do X amount of things a day. And when I get those things, nothing else matters. And it's like, well, yeah, you're a multimillionaire now. Like, you can do that. But when somebody's like struggling to get a business up off the ground, like, hey, an 18-hour day is probably going to be the norm for a very long time. Yep. And if you're starting a business while you have a regular job, guess what? Guaranteed you better be used to 18 and 19-hour days, because you got your regular job, and then you've got all the other things. And, the other thing that people have to understand, and I know I'm kind of going off on a little tangent, but it's all tied into this, is I respect the opportunity that Jocko and Leif have given me. And when I was, and still to the day, like, when I'm on the road working, like, I'm working. Mm-hmm. And there are times, like, when I'm at home, I got my work days, like, I'm working, I'm doing stuff, I'm preparing, calls and everything else like that. Like, I'm not, like when I go to jiu-jitsu, guys are like, oh, we miss you, wish you around. And like, I know I've said this before, like, my joke's always like, hey man, you take over my mortgage and my bills, like, I'll come train more often for sure.
Yeah.
And guys are like, oh no, we're good. And I joke because I know that they're joking, but there's this, like, there's an aspect to, like, there are benefits to putting in the work. And, the thing that I look at it is, if I'm not putting in all the time in the work, I'm not honoring the opportunity that God has given me.
100%.
And, I think there is something to, like, when people take advantage of the opportunities that they get, and they're not working hard, and they're not, working hard throughout the day and putting in the time and going out there and building a business and doing the right things. Like, I personally believe that, I don't know how to say this the right way without some, like, people
just spit it out.
Like, I don't think, like, if you're not putting in the work and honoring, like, the company that you work for, I have a hard time seeing how you're going to be blessed with just putting in minimal work.
Yeah.
And or taking advantage of what you have. Like, you know,
Right.
like it's like when people that work for a company and they, you know, they have the freedom to just kind of like do what they want, and they don't work throughout the day because they don't have any accountability. They're not in at an, you know, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's like the guy that has, you know, we need you to come in. We're pretty flexible in the morning. We just need you to come in sometime between 8 and 10 and kind of get your day started. And when you get your work done, you can leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start showing up at 8, and then, you know, in 3 months down the road, they're showing up at 10.
Yeah.
And they're leaving at 2. And they're like, well, I got all my work done. And you're like, yeah, but it's low quality. Like the freedom that we gave you to be able to do it now has become something that not only have you taken advantage of, but now it's making your what was excellent work at the beginning. You've taken so much advantage of that freedom and taken so much liberty with it that now like what you're turning it is unacceptable.
I'll give you an example of what good looks like and what I knew to do this already, and it was just like, for me, it's an integrity thing.
Right.
But also the example that the other sales guys set when I was working at that financial company, when guys were on the road, they were working. They were going to appointments, you know what I mean? They weren't sleeping in at their hotel. They weren't staying up all night out drinking. They weren't taking like 2-hour lunch breaks and putting a nice extravagant lunch on the company card and saying they were with a client,
right,
and a nice big expensive dinner and saying they were with a client. They didn't do that. Like, we didn't do that. They didn't do that. They were filling their days with appointments because these guys were hungry and they valued the opportunity they had in front of them. And then when we were back at home at the office, they were working hard. They were in there early. They were staying late. When they took a lunch break, they were working, during their lunch break, or they would just say, all right, 30 minutes of just not doing anything, but they're always doing something.
Yeah.
And guess what? Those guys were blessed.
Yeah.
And they were successful financially, and they were doing well, and they were growing their book of business. And these guys didn't not once were they ever like, oh, I'm out doing sales calls and just like screwing around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were working their book of business. They were honoring the company that they worked for, and they were doing the right thing.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. Now, I remember meeting other like sales managers in the industry, and that was one of the biggest problems that they had, is guys getting lazy and not growing their book of business. But the sales managers also were like, you know what? They're heavily paid commission. So if they want to be lazy, whatever.
Yeah.
He goes, it affects them. He goes, we pay them the minimum and they put in the minimum. Okay. He goes, my sales guys that, want to make money, they put in the work. He goes, and I know who's not putting in the work because their commissions reflect it. And it was, I remember having that conversation with this guy because we were just talking about he had been a sales manager for years, and I had just been promoted, and I was just like, hey, what do you look for? Like, what's your kind of things, made you successful? And we were talking about different compensation plans, and he said that was the biggest thing was the, when you give guys that freedom is, how do you keep guys motivated and accountable? When they can literally screw off all. He goes, my guys could screw off all day, and I would have very minimal insight on that other than how their commissions are reflected.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know we went off on a tangent, but to me, these are all connected because of what he's talking about in regards to like op tempo of like how busy you are.
Right.
And it's just alignment that I have with my life.
Right on. Question number 2, Jason Lehman 64. Why are you so good looking?
I put that. I wasn't gonna put that in there, but I was like, we put every question in there.
Yeah.
Jason's hilarious, man. He's a good dude.
That's not a reason though. What do you think the reason is? Good genetics.
I would, if his statement is accurate, which it's still up for debate.
Sure.
I would say genetics and taking that time war.
Yeah.
From Jocko Fuel.
All right. Largen J _ Jesse. When's lunch?
Soon, my friend. We need to go get some of that Chewies.
Oh yeah.
So he's a OG trooper, meaning like the the Jocko podcast listeners,
the original guys, had the little trooper thing on his chrome, the trooper extension.
Yep. Yeah. So the supporters of Jocko and Leif and Extreme Ownership at the beginning and the Jocko podcast. And when we moved out to this area, we had been connected on social media for a while, and we met for lunch one day. And just a good dude. He's just a hard worker. He's in the game. And helped out with some stuff with Echelon Front. It was like a lot. I mean, we were doing a roll call, and we realized that we didn't have enough people to help with the roll call. And I sent a text to him, Will Tate, Josh, and a few other guys, and I was just like, "Hey guys, we need help." And him, Will, and Josh, and they were just like, "Cool, on my way." Like, stopped what they were doing that day, got people to cover down, and helped with that roll call in September of 2018.
Right on,
so,
man.
Anyways,
very cool.
So Jesse, soon, my brother, I owe you lunch for sure.
All right, number 4, the Richard Chapman. How do you gain leadership capital with your new boss beyond supporting his ideas, taking the indirect approach, etc.? This is a tricky one because etc. likely includes whatever answer you're about to give.
I know.
Yeah, just by virtue of being etc.
Work hard. Don't push back. Ask good questions, and build a relationship with your boss.
Yeah,
it's not rocket science. Work hard.
Yeah,
that's how you get leadership capital built with your leadership. And when they ask you to do something, say Roger that. And if you have questions in regards to why you're doing it or how you should do it properly, make sure you're being mindful of your tone, tact, delivery, and the timing of asking that question. So if Lucas was to ask me like, hey, I need you to go, do A, B, and Z, I'd be like, cool, Roger that, boss. Hey, I have a few questions. Before I go do that, I just want to make sure I have alignment on how you want me to get that done and why we're doing it so that I can, make sure that we're doing it properly, and asking for that why. Because if you don't give me the why, I want the why. And I'm going to get that from you. Like, hey, boss, I just want to make sure I understand why we're doing this, just so me and the team can go out there and do it properly. And then I'm going to go do it. I'm going to do it extremely well. Mm-hmm. I'm going to work hard. I'm not going to complain. And I'm going to report back to you. I am going to over communicate with you in regards to progress and when we finish that job.
So in relation to this question, right? A lot of times when a new boss comes in, let's say they've done their due diligence on the team that they're going to take over, right? They've read the personnel files. They know, kind of where people's strengths and weaknesses are, who's been a disciplinary problem and stuff in the past and that kind of stuff. So they come into the team and they've started to build some really good relationships with the team. And yet the things that they're asking to do they don't make sense maybe with the company's goals, or they don't make sense with like what they actually do because they're not experienced in that field, right? How do you approach your boss because one of the things that the Jocko talks about in leadership strategies and tactics is, finding a way to invite your boss that like maybe he's asking you to do things that don't make practical sense within your, field of work. How do you in a let's say, non-insubordinate way, invite your boss? How do you, in an indirect way, kind of invite your boss to come and, like, hey, do you mind coming to work with me for a day so that you can show him how the things he's asking you are impractical versus like just being that aggressive guy that's like, listen, I know you're new to this, but the things you're asking us to do don't make any sense based off of what we actually do. Yeah,
I'm going to make sure my tone is proper and how I'm asking these questions and delivering that. And I would say, hey, boss, I was wondering if you could help me out. Tomorrow is there any possibility you can come by the job site tomorrow to review how we're getting this work done? I have a few questions. It would be easier for me to be able to show you some of these things that we're working through so I could get your advice on what's the best option for us. And I just want to make sure that we have alignment and make sure that we're doing this properly.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go that route. And let's just say the boss is like, hey, I don't have the time. I'm like, cool. Hey, I might take some pictures and videos when we're out there doing the work. I'm going to send them to you. And just so that way you and I can review these issues that we keep running into so that you could give us a little bit of guidance of what you need us to do to kind of solve that problem.
Yeah, I do think that is something that helps build leadership capital with the new boss, is like inviting him out, letting him be part of the workspace, even if they are good with the team, because they still have to be on the front lines. They need to know what's going on, and it'll allow them to discover the issues with what's going on instead of you pointing it out to them and then just feeling like, hey, they're not trying to do it.
Yeah.
All right. Wesley Popham.
Yeah.
What do you
He's
think?
One of the guys that's
lost
about 100.
Fam.
He's lost about 100 pounds.
Yeah.
He's fluctuated. I know he lost 100 pounds. He went back up, dropped down, up, down. He's in that the roller coaster phase right now. I mean, he's super busy with travel, life, everything else like that. But he's back on the path, getting that weight under control, which I like.
Is it Popham or is it Popham? Is that PH there an F sound? What do you think?
Bro, I only know him as Wesley. I've never heard his last name. I'm gonna go with
Wesley Popham. What do you do when you find yourself in a season where it seems like everything you're involved in goes south?
Take a deep breath, relax, look around, step back, detach from your emotions, and just do honest self-assessments.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that we can do in these situations is just step back, evaluate what's going on, and ask yourself, okay, how have I contributed and played a role to these things going south? What can I do to control this and fix this? That's what we can, there's, we talked about this before, and I know he's heard me say this at the muster. He does all the AV stuff at the muster.
Cool.
His team is unreal.
Yeah.
There's things that you can control no matter what's happening in your life. Your attitude, your work ethic, your integrity, and your discipline. And if you're lacking discipline, it's hard to control those first three things. Right. But you can always control your attitude, work ethic, integrity, and discipline. Those things can be influenced by other people.
Right.
Good and bad, right? So if I'm working with you and you have a good attitude, well, that might be able to influence me to have a good attitude. If I know you're a man of integrity and you explain to me like, hey man, we don't do that. That's the wrong thing. We don't do that. That's a good way to influence me. If you're working really hard and you just like, come on man, hey, we got to knock this out. This is, an awesome opportunity that we have. Like, hey, you're going to encourage me to work hard, And then discipline, if you're just disciplined and organized, and you explain to me why that discipline equals freedom and the benefits that you've had in your life to being disciplined, well, that's a good way to influence me to be disciplined as well. And so I'm going to look at those things, Wes. I'm going to make sure that I'm controlling my attitude. I'm not getting emotional. I'm going to do an honest self-assessment and ask myself, okay, hey, how have I contributed to this problem? Mm-hmm. What have I done to play a part in creating these problems, and what do I need to do to fix it? And let's just say it's just something that has happened that you couldn't control. Okay, what can you do to solve the problem? You didn't cause the problem. It was one of those outside things. Now you have to ask yourself, what can you do to start solving the problems? And then there are some things that you have to actually just remove from your life. If it's a situation, an event, a person, an item that is causing you these problems, you have to remove yourself from that. And there are times that that's something that we actually have to do in life.
That reminds me a little bit of the meeting from yesterday. You guys let me very graciously sit in on the Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, the EO Academy, just kind of, what is it? Is it the leadership meeting? What's the official title of that?
Just EO Live, Extreme Ownership Academy Live training.
Okay, so it was awesome, but one of the big things yesterday's big topic that you and Rob Jones and Jamie chimed in a little bit about it, and so did Corey, talking about boundaries, how important boundaries are. And there is a lot of that, like when everything that we touch is kind of going south, where one of the evaluations we have to make is like, what are the boundaries that we're setting? What things are we allowing to affect us? Where are the things where maybe we're overplaying ourselves, or we're allowing ourselves to be overtaxed that really aren't in our areas of responsibility and are causing those other things to fall back. I think that was an incredible conversation, and thanks a lot for letting me in on that, man. That's a super high value thing that I got to be a part of yesterday. Question number 6, an Arizonian, our good buddy we haven't heard from in a little while, just lost another squad mate to suicide. Do you have any advice for veterans on how to process that loss and support the family? That's not the first, but unfortunately, it probably won't be the last. Been reaching out to check in and whatnot. Just feel lost and wish I could do more. Thanks for what you're doing, brother.
Yeah, this is hard. This is frustrating. Losing a squadron mate to suicide, a teammate, family member, a friend to suicide is always difficult because it's hard to figure out and understand. Like, hey, why did you decide that you thought that this was the best option? And it just causes so much pain and hurt to the people around you. You're hurting your family. You're hurting your loved ones. And I understand, like, a lot of people are like, well, they were hurting and now they have peace. Okay, cool. I get that. However, you have caused an unmeasurable amount of pain and suffering to your family and your loved ones. And so it's not worth it. It's not the answer. Like, you are going to be better tomorrow or the following day or the following week. Like, you can work through whatever's going on, whatever pain, whatever hurt, whatever guilt that you're feeling and carrying. Like, we can work through these things. You can work through these things. And you have to believe in yourself. You have to put in the work. You have to ask for help. You have to show humility and say, hey, you know what? I'm struggling right now. I do not want to be alive. This is what's happening in my life. I feel like the only thing that's going to help make me feel better is hurting myself. You have to be willing to say those things so that people can provide help and resources to you, because you are surrounded by people that love you. You are surrounded by people that are going to pray into you. They're going to support you. They're going to listen to you. They're going to help you work through problems. They're going to get you the support that you need. Whatever it is, there are people in your life that are willing to help you. You have to be willing to show them that you need that help. Now, the other flip side to this is a lot of people are like, well, I wish I would have seen these signs sooner. It's hard, like, to read the signs of people. But if you know the people around you, you know when something's wrong. And people, almost all the time, there are indicators and signs before they do these things, because people subconsciously know that this is not what they really want to do.
Yeah.
So they start giving little hints for us to be able to recognize.
Yeah. There's one of those things that we when we work with people in recovery, especially when they're talking about, like, how do I support somebody? How do I whatever? And we just always tell them, like, hey, if you're thinking about somebody, send them a text message that lets them know that you're appreciating.
Yep.
There's a reason that they're on your mind.
The Holy Spirit is prompting you.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be an hour-long phone call. You don't have to tell them, like, you're one of the most important people in my life. Like, it doesn't have to be that text message every time. Yeah. Sometimes the best text message is just like, hey, thinking about you. Just want you to, know that
love
somebody
you,
out
care
there
about you, proud of you.
It. Yep.
Hey, I know you got some stuff going on in life. I also know that I can't relate and I don't know all the details, but just want to let you know that I'm proud of you. I love you.
Yeah. Miss you, man. Let's get coffee. Like, whatever it is, those little messages can be big differences in people's lives.
Like Formiga did when
100%,
God
exactly
put that person on their gym on his heart and he called him. The guy literally had the gun in his mouth and saw Formiga calling him. So that is a prompting of the Holy Spirit to reach out. So in regards to the question for support to the family, there is no black and white answer like, hey, do this and this and this. Just being there for the family, reaching out to them, saying, hey, I just want to let you know we're here if there's anything you need help with. And also understand that people tend to not want to ask for help. So, hey, go over and mow the grass.
Mm-hmm.
Go mow the grass. Say, hey, I'm going to come mow your lawn, pick some weeds, like do some things that it's not really that big of a deal for you to have to go do. Cook them some meals, bring them some meals, bring them some, or, what you could do is, like Amanda and I, we've done this for people that are going through things, is Amanda will cook them a bunch of meals and then freeze them, so that they don't have to do anything with it. Yep. Like, they don't even have to freeze them. They don't have to worry about the fridge space. She literally will cook the meals, freeze them. We'll bring them to them, put them in the freezer and say, hey, when you want to cook it, all you have to do is defrost these things.
There you go.
Just trying to provide a little bit of value, just to show somebody, hey, I'm thinking about you. I care about you. We love you. So, he said he's been reaching out to check in. That's great. Feeling lost. That's normal. Wish you could do more. Okay, go do more. Just be Be intentional with the conversations that you're having with their family. Be there to listen. Take them some coffee. Take them out to coffee. Get them out of the house. Get people out of the house. Go do something with them physical. Like, we know that, physical activity helps people feel better. Go for a walk, or, hey, we have this softball tournament. I want you to come play in it. Or, hey, we're going to go for a hike. You're in Arizona. There's beautiful hikes. Mm-hmm. Or maybe he said squadron mate, so they might be in a different city or a different region. Yeah. So get on Zoom. Get on FaceTime with them. Just, do something with them.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. And then, I would add to that, anytime somebody experiences loss, like, everybody kind of gathers around them for that first week or two, but it's the 3 month, the 6 month, the 12-month marker. Yep. I think 24 and 60 months are the other big ones. And there's some people that I get some pushback on this from, because they're like, well, if I do this, then it's not authentic. But set an alarm on your phone. Yeah. Right? And they're like, well, if I set the alarm on my phone, then it's not really me. I was like, first off, yes, it is, because it shows that you're being, you care enough about them to do that. Yeah. But man, set that alarm that hey, I need to send this person a text message in 3 months. And there are some things that you can do. I know Apple's got it now. Android's had it for a while, that you can schedule a text message 3 or 6 months out. And so while you're thinking about it, while it's fresh on your mind, just go ahead, write that text message, schedule it to be sent in 3 months, and then it'll do it automatically. And then that person will know that
that's pretty cool,
that you thought about him and all that. All right. Next question. Tyler McCallum. Is there more to life than being really, really, really ridiculously good looking?
No.
I kind of wish I could pull off Blue Steel right now.
I know. I was I hope you know what this is
if
from.
We had enough gasoline for a good gasoline fight.
Zoolander.
So stupid.
Thank you, Tyler.
Zach Goodsell. What does it look like for a husband to lead his wife and kids in faith? What are ways that you guys do this?
Okay. What does it look like for a husband to lead his wife and kids in faith? What are ways that you guys do this? Well, I think it's important that you are in church with your family.
Yep.
So making church a priority is, to me, number one. So going to church or sitting down and watching an online service, because I know you have people that tune into your church to watch the service. So how would they do that?
You can just go to if you went to the First Baptist Church Dallas Facebook page. If you want to see old sermons, you go to YouTube. Same thing with Milestone. You guys have that as well. There's a lot of people that
can watch it live.
And for one reason or another, it's whether out of convenience or necessity, right? If you've got sick kids and you don't want to take them to the children's ministry because, somebody's got strep throat, or you don't want to get everybody else there sick, you got to take care of them. That online option is a great one.
Dude, it's
to go to 100%.
It's cool. I know with us at Milestone, we actually have an online pastor.
Yep.
So Pastor Luke, who Ethan was talking about, who's best friend, he's our online pastor. And so when people are watching the service live, he's interacting with them.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, this is what's going on. Here's some prayers, or they have some thoughts. And he's just the whole time interacting with them. And it's cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I would go to, Lucas's church or Milestones and watch the service online with your family. Going into church is critical. Going in, interacting with people. This is the way God designed us. This is how the fellowship is a real thing. So going into a church, being a part of a church is really important. Also praying with your kids, not just saying, hey, good night, I love you guys, say your prayers. Mm-hmm. Actually pray with your kids. I love praying with my kids. I don't do it enough. I need to do it more for sure. But it's awesome. Just leading your kids in prayers and, letting them pray and just listening and adding to it.
And it creates those habits for them as well that you're showing them, not only are you doing it with them, but you're setting the example of hey, this is what we do. This is what we're about. Yeah. Levi right now, if we go to eat, he'll take the first few bites, but when everybody gets to the table, he's like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. And puts his hands up. He knows that we've got to pray. And it's super, super sweet.
Yeah.
But also if there's a lull in the conversation at dinner, it could be, my folks were over the other night. So it's me, Kirsten, Levi, my mom and dad sitting at the table. Everybody's got food in their mouth, but the conversation has stopped, and he's noticing the lull, and he's like, thank you, Jesus. Like nobody's talking. So do we need to pray again? Like I think we blessed the food like 5 times that night. But
dude.
like every time we just went for it, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Reading the Bible with your kids, and also like making sure your kids see you spending time in the Word.
That is, I got that circled right here.
You need to be in the Word. And the thing is, like, hey, let's just say I was to be waking up at 4 a.m. and doing my Bible studies. Well, nobody else in the house is awake. And if I was to sit there and be like, hey, you guys need to be in your Word, you need to be doing all these things, but they don't see me doing it, that could, it could turn into a situation where, like, well, you never do it. And it's like, oh, well, actually, this is I was like, now I know why I'm giving this example. This happened with Matt Russell, the founder of Walking in Truth Ministries.
Yep.
He do you know the story?
Yeah, Stephen told it on the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast.
That's right. Okay, I couldn't remember if you had heard it, if you knew, but for those listeners,
this is where I was actually going.
That don't listen to the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast, fix yourself. Start listening to that on Tuesday mornings. But Matt Russell was, telling his daughters that they need to be doing their Bible studies and reading the Bible. And his daughter's like, why? You don't? And he's like, why? When he tells his story, it's hilarious because he's just like, you better,
you
obviously
no idea
joking.
what I do.
He's joking. Very, very comical, loving guy. So he's totally joking, just for the effect. But then he realized, he's like, oh, I do it in the morning when they're asleep. They don't ever see me reading my Bible. So he just changed up his thing. And it's just a great way. It's a great example. I've talked about my grandmother many times. And as a kid, what did we see every single time we walked into the kitchen if she wasn't cooking? She was sitting there reading her Bible, praying. Yeah. Like, I'm telling you, like, every single morning, she would be praying over our family, praying over every single family member, reading her Bible. I mean, her Bible, like, man, I know it's going to be like a battle for what family member gets that when she passes away. But it's so well worn out. It's underlined, it's highlighted. It got little notes. Like, I mean, there's like all these little thoughts and notes. And she has journals where when she's doing her Bible study, she's also writing her thoughts, and she's writing out her prayers and all these things. And just, every single morning. And if, you woke up early, you'd hear, outside of summer because it was hot there, but, winter, fall, spring, you'd wake up to hearing the crackling of the wood-burning stove in the kitchen going, and she's either cooking breakfast or doing her Bible study. And if you woke up early enough, you saw the Bible study. And, like, I just remember sitting there, and there'd be times I'd just be standing there just looking at her, and she didn't know we were there, and she'd just be head bowed, hands together, just praying, and just praying, and then praying in her prayer language. And it was the most beautiful thing ever. And that has always been a phenomenal example of what we should do. And, that ties into, like, Brian, who said, I second this question from a wife's perspective. It's all the same thing. Yeah. Like, pray with your spouse, pray over your spouse, pray with your kids, pray over your kids. Let your kids see you reading the Bible and doing Bible studies, and let your kids understand that going to church is a priority. Yeah. So
there is this weird thing between the way a dad teaches something and the way a mom teaches something, right? Especially with young kids. Because a dad can show somebody, he can show their kids why something's important, but a mom, especially in that young age when they're nurturing the kids, they can really teach their kids how to love something in a way that the dad can't. Oh, yes. And I think that this is one of those things where those complementary roles that we've been designed with, like dads, we have to set the example to show our kids why the scripture is important. But mom, whenever your kids are young, you can really teach them to love the scriptures in a way that we can't because of the time that you've got, or because of the intentionality that you have, or your connection with your kids is way different. So that's a cool deal. All right, next question. J.S. Anderson, 1919. that's like World War I era. This guy's old. What sort of interplay should ambition and humility have in a well-oriented leader?
I mean, both those are important. So I guess I wish, what would be cool we need to do one time is if somehow we could do this tours live. Because I could be like, hey, give me a little more insight.
Bro, 100%.
What sort of interplay should ambition and humility have in a well-oriented leader? I mean, you need to have an unreal amount of ambition, and you need to have an unreal amount of humility. I mean, you need to have both of them at a very high level because, I mean, if I don't have ambition as a leader, I'm not going to be able to drive myself, and I'm not going to be able to drive my team. And when I say drive them, it's a healthy thing. Like, you need to be pushed and challenged by people. And that's what good leaders do. Good leaders push and challenge their people to reach their goals, to exceed their own personal expectations and limitations that they've had on themselves, and win. Like, that's what you should be doing as a leader. I want my people to win. And that's what you need to be giving people. And then humility is critical because as I'm doing that with my people, part of that is by me empowering my people and saying, hey, what do you think we should do? Hey, this is what we need to do, blah, blah, blah. Here's the why. What do you think we should do, Lucas? And then when you have a plan that isn't aligned with my plan of how I would like it to do it, but I also know that your plan is good enough to go at least start working down the road and figuring it out, then I need to have the humility to say, cool, I like your plan. Let me know what I can do to support you. Right. Because if somebody is overly ambitious and lacks humility, then it's just going to be my way, my way, my way. Let's just go, 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 go. Hey, it's easier if I just do this. It's easier if I just tell them exactly what to do. It's just easier if I come up with a plan because, hey, we don't have the time to come up with a plan. We got to go, 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 go. And you're like, all right, calm down. Like, very rarely in life is it ever a situation where it's like, nope, we have to execute right now. No talking, action only. Now, there are times in like catastrophic emergency type of situations, but how often in business do you think somebody actually has to make a decision right now without having the time to discuss it and or get wise counsel?
Oh, very rarely, if ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in law enforcement and you're a first responder,
different
you
story.
live in a different world.
Yeah.
We know that. But even then, there are still a lot of opportunities where somebody can pause, stop, detach from their emotions, and think before they take action.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what training and stuff is all about, is to help people be able to have the muscle memory, make those split second decisions.
The only time for a first responder, I would say, is if you encountered somebody causing harm or violence to somebody at that moment. Like, that's not the time to be like, well, let me see what my partner says.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm getting in there.
You got to go through that mental flow chart.
Hey, you hear gunshots, you run towards that.
Yeah.
If you're a first responder, you run towards that. I don't care what's happening or what direction you've been giving. You run towards that to go neutralize and eliminate that threat. And the other situation would be like if if somebody had a weapon and they were, shooting at you or somebody else, then cool, draw your weapon, eliminate that threat.
Yeah.
And the reason why I didn't say, hey, if you see somebody with a weapon, because you can still be like, hey, put the weapon down. And, if you have a weapon and you bring it and you have a weapon out to your side and I have my weapon out, I can still talk you out of this situation. I'd be like, hey man, like, I know you got some stuff going on. Hey, if you raise that weapon, I'm going to have to shoot you. I do not want to shoot you. You don't want to be shot. Like, please put the weapon down. Just go ahead and drop it to your side. I'm going to try to de-escalate it. And then if the hand starts to come up, then I have to think about it. I have to think about what my next step is going to be.
Right.
But unfortunately, most law enforcement is going to have a hard time working through that situation because of lack of training. Mm-hmm. That's why training is critical for everybody. So 100%. Bringing this back to, I know we kind of went on a little bit of a tangent, but to me, that still ties into the ambition and humility, because if I'm well trained, I'm going to be humbled.
Yeah.
And that's going to help me make decisions because of hard training, because I've been in, trust me, I had a lot of ambition as a young SEAL.
Yeah.
Like, that was not an issue.
Right.
But when I got put in hard situations where I was humbled, that helped me find the balance between ambition and humility.
Yeah, Ethan May, when he was on, mentioned this book by J. Oswald Sanders, Spiritual Leadership, and that first chapter is on ambition and how to balance that. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on managing the difference between selfish ambition and missional ambition? Where that selfish ambition is something that serves us, but that missional ambition is about what, maybe your long-term strategic goals are and figuring those things out.
So, both of those are important, but if I'm in a leadership position or if I'm a part of a team in general, I'm putting the mission above myself at all times. Yeah. That's what makes a good teammate. You want a good SEAL was a guy that put the team and the mission above themselves at all times. The good husband puts the family above themselves at all times. Now, there are things that I have to do to accomplish my goals, to participate and help be a part of the team and help my family survive. But it's not about me. It's about my team.
Yeah. And then at that point, even the things that you're doing for yourself, they are all meant to serve that mission.
Yeah.
Right. So it all works together.
And then that's fulfilling. That's fulfillment right there.
All right, this one I know I'm gonna butcher it, so I'm gonna go with El Cachuns. How do you build up the next generation to lead when they don't want to?
Well,
I also am curious about your answer to this question.
I love this question because we're assuming people don't want to lead, and the reason why someone might not want to lead is because they've seen crappy leadership around them.
Yeah.
So what type of example are you setting for this next generation? And also understand, you were that generation to somebody else. You weren't always a rock star that you think you are right now. I love when people are like, oh, the millennials. Our pastor this weekend was like, everyone complains about millennials. Hey, the millennials are 40 years old right now.
Yeah, we are.
We're in our 40s. We're doing pretty cool things. We've been somewhat successful. Mm-hmm. It's just comical. Millennials, and also for the last 20 years, guess what the millennials were doing? Freaking serving our military.
Yeah.
Deploying to war and doing pretty good at what they were doing. And, there's always going to be this whole the next generation doesn't want to whatever.
Yeah.
You were that generation to somebody else. I promise you. You weren't always the rock star that you think you are right now. And I'm not saying it to this guy, but I'm saying it to this guy and everybody else. Because there are times that we have to step back and realize okay, somebody poured into me. Somebody taught me how to lead. Somebody taught me why discipline is important. Somebody taught me how to detach from my emotions. Somebody taught me that, hey, when you lose your temper and you say these things, that's going to damage relationships. Somebody taught me how to listen to people and actively listen and take notes. And someone taught me how to do the readback so that I have alignment. Somebody taught me hey, it's really important that we focus on teamwork with these other departments. Hey, I know these other departments, at times we have misalignment with them. But we should never have competing goals and agendas because we're on the same team. Yeah. Somebody taught me when we were overseas, hey, one team, one fight. These soldiers and Marines that you're working with, it's a one team, one fight mentality. And if we can maintain that one team, one fight mentality, it helps us have the proper mindset for the next generation. And you have to look at it from a legacy play. I'm looking at this from a legacy play standpoint of okay, these people are working with me and for me, whether I like it or not. Who's going to train them? If not me, then who? And that's what we have to think about. So you might feel like people don't want to lead, and that might be factual, but you have to ask yourself, why? What has caused them to not want to lead? And we have to show them that when you are in a leadership position, you have the potential to deliver impact and make your life and the life of other people around you a lot better if you do it properly. So just teach them how to do that.
Billy M. Cyrus. How good do you have to be at a sport to establish and have a credible voice of ministry in it to effectively be an insider thereof? Obviously something further on the day one or even year one, but how much beyond that? Also, how to establish such fellowship in a geographic area where people are highly insulated to their own family and locality, generally unaccepting of outsiders. This is a huge topic.
Yeah. Well, for you to have, for you to have credibility, you have to be able to perform at something.
Yeah.
But there's a balance there, because we would have leaders in the SEAL teams that weren't good snipers, that weren't good machine gunners, that weren't good breachers, but they still were able to lead us.
Yeah.
And have influence with us. So for me, what you have to be good at, he said sport. So I'm like, this is what's kind of throwing me off, is the sport. So let me finish my train of thought. Let me go back to that, okay? And so to have credibility with a team, it's about your ability to build a relationship. Can you build a relationship and empower the people on your team to go out there and execute the work?
Yeah.
There are great coaches that weren't very good when they played the game, but they're good at being coaches because they understand the big picture and they can see all the moving parts, and they know how to empower the players to allow them to have the ability to go out and execute and do what they're really good at. So if I'm looking at this from a leadership standpoint, I need to be able to just build really good relationships and empower my people that are really good to go out there and execute the work.
I think a good example of that is, and I just had to look up his name, is Mike McDaniel. So I'm going to show you a picture of this guy because I know you're not a huge football fan, but this is the coach of the Miami Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, who looked like he just got off his couch and started coaching football.
Has he ever played football?
So he's got he has played football, but his whole story was that he started off, he has no real football career.
Cool.
He started off as like a ball boy for the Denver Broncos.
Awesome.
And now has worked himself up to head coach, and his players will run through a wall for this dude because he understands the game. But the thing that you were talking about too is he really shows that he cares. Yeah. His credibility is in his knowledge of the game and how much he cares for his team, and I think that's a big thing there.
And what's cool is his knowledge of the game, which he needs to have that to be in that position. Right. But there are people that are in leadership positions that don't have the skill set knowledge of what their people are doing. Yeah. But they know how to put them in the right place.
That's
and
so
it's like, hey, you do this and you're really good at it. You're the knowledge, you're the industry expert. My job is just to make sure that I'm using you in the right capacity to allow you to succeed and do really good at your job. And that's what leaders in the SEAL teams would do. It's like, all right, cool. You didn't know how my sniper rifle worked. You didn't know how the breachers, you had a baseline knowledge of all these things, but you weren't the expert. You were in a position to lead and guide them. A great example of this is Jamie Cochran.
Okay.
So think about this.
She was not a Navy SEAL.
Jamie Cochran, she was not a Navy SEAL. She was hired part-time at Echelon Front to book travel.
Yeah.
That was her job at the very beginning. And then she started interacting with clients. And then she started doing a little bit more and 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 a little bit more. And now it's to the point where she's one of our senior instructors and our COO. She wasn't a Navy SEAL, but she's the COO of Echelon Front, which is a leadership consulting company based around the principles that Jocko Leif wrote in the book Extreme Ownership. That was based around our deployment to Ramadi and what we did at training. How Navy SEAls lead and win. Yet she's able to do it. So she has done a really good job at building relationships, understanding the overall picture, and putting people in the right place.
How much do you think, because the very beginning of this question is it's kind of like, how much credibility do you have to have in order to break into an industry or whatever, right? Yeah. And so there is experience, there are qualifications, what's your resume look like and that kind of thing. As an outsider that's trying to get in though, or to establish a foothold in it, how much of it is just being available, getting in, and then not trying to take over? Because I think one of the areas where a lot of people tend to fail is they're like, oh, you know what? I want to be part of it. We'll use the FCA, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, because it's a good example They're in high schools, they're in junior highs across the country, and a lot of times they'll bring in somebody who is a former athlete to go and speak or whatever. But it's more often than not, it's the youth pastor who like has never played any sports or anything, who actually is the one that really in those groups has the most impact, because they come in and they're not trying to compare resumes with anybody. They're not trying to compare like, oh, you won 2 state championship rings, or they're not got the Uncle Rico syndrome where they're like, oh, you know what, if they would have put in the fourth quarter, like we'd have won state, no doubt in my mind.
Yep.
Instead, they're just there to serve, to be part of the group, and to care for the folks that are there, to do whatever they can to help out. And that attitude, even if somebody is immensely talented, that attitude over time is the one where that person tends to be the one that rises to the top and can be a rallying point even more than the one with credentials. And the person I'm thinking about the most with this is a guy named Scotty Wallace, who's a local guy. Scotty was helping out with some local youth stuff. He was a youth pastor for a while. I think he's ended up being a pastor somewhere. I've lost touch with him. But Scotty was helping out with students and was just like helping them get into the Bible and FCAs and those kind of things. And then we found out like 2 years into him just like being there serving that he played professional basketball. And we were like, that's pretty cool. So you played in the NBA? Like, when did you play in the NBA? And he was like, like early mid 90s. And we're like, all right, that's pretty cool. Did you ever like play against anybody famous? He was like, I played for the Chicago Bulls. So it's like, whoa. You've held out on us with all of this info. Like, how much did you play with the Chicago Bulls? And he's like, he goes, if you show up next week, bring some friends, I'll show you what it was like playing with the Chicago Bulls. And then pops up with a championship ring. Like, legit on teams with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, has hardware, but he never went in with the resume, even though like he was a bit player on the team. But he never tried to make it like he was one of the guys that was the stars. But at the same time, when he was there trying to get involved and to help out the students that were there, for him, it was never about comparing his athletic credentials, his resume to anybody else. It was about being there to be about what the mission was at that thing. And I think that when we all found out, like, blew our minds away, because there was an incredible amount of just humility and ease about the guy that, for me, when you look at the other two questions, that part, because of his willingness to just be there and to serve, the other two things took care of themselves. Because all of a sudden we were like, oh, yeah, how do you build a group that's unaccepting of outsiders? He was there, he was serving, showed us that he cared. And then when we got to see a championship ring, then all of a sudden everybody was blowing up because people were like, no, yeah, I freaking want to see this.
How much of a greater impact do you think he could have had if he would have been able to share that with you guys sooner, though?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I don't think you can really measure that, obviously.
Yeah,
but I'm just curious.
But I don't know how much his impact would have differed between us and him. But I do think it really helped him with the coaches.
Yeah.
Because the junior high coaches who were giving their time to sponsor those things, that were there day in and day out, that we had really strong relationships with, when he was there to support them, because they found out like just a while into it, and he was like, yeah, I used to play some basketball, so I'd love to help the kids out. They found out almost a year and a half before we did, because he like took them all out to dinner, and then he was like, I'm not really ready to tell the kids yet. But that earned him so much leadership capital and relationship capital with those coaches, because he didn't step in and say, I played for the Bulls, I've got a seminary degree, I'm going to come in and run this thing. He went in and he supported a bunch of guys who were coaching junior high football and having to teach science classes. That I think that is where his impact was the biggest.
All right, so let's quickly talk about how to establish fellowship in a geographical area where people are highly insulated in their own family and locality, generally unaccepting of outsiders. Hey, this is a slow play. Like, you've got to build up trust with people, and you have to have alignment in regards to values and or goals in life and what you're trying to accomplish. And so people are going to be protective and guarding of their family and their community. You have to provide value to them. Mm-hmm. If you don't provide value to my family and my friends, I'm not bringing you in the circle. It's just not going to happen. So make sure that you're providing value and that you're being patient with building those relationships, that you're being genuine, and that you're focused on like, okay, hey, how can I contribute and add value to this group of people instead of like, hey, this is, I want this for my own personal gain.
Yeah. How important is it in a situation like that you like make a decision not to get your feelings hurt too? Because like that's like putting the ego aside in that when you know that, all right, I'm an outsider, it's going to be hard for me to break in.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big one.
Yeah, it is. And, you know,
because if you go into it with a chip on your shoulder.
Oh, yeah, it's not going to work.
Right.
So, all right.
Next question. What is the biggest or most common challenge when trying to get a company to implement extreme ownership?
So when we work with companies at Echelon Front, the biggest barrier is the self-imposed limitations that people put upon themselves and all the excuses that people make. Be like, oh, well, I was never in the military, or like there's all these different things that people are worried about initially. And then when they work with us, they recognize like, oh, these principles are universal. These principles work. I can implement them. I will say the biggest challenge is people wanting to sit back and see who else is going to go implement it first. Is people not being default aggressive to take ownership themselves, to not implement the laws of combat, the mindsets of victory. That would be the biggest challenge, is because people will be all fired up about it, and then they just kind of sit back and be like, all right, well, let me see what Lucas does with his team, or how Lucas implemented it with his team. I would say that would be the biggest one. The next one is where people like try to implement it with their people, and their team isn't fully bought in.
Yeah.
And now they get a little frustrated, and you know, people are like, "Oh, that's stupid. Hey, that's another flavor of the month. It's just another corporate training that they're putting out. We're gonna go back to doing things the same way that we've always done it." And so you have a lot of that like hate and discontent amongst the team. And so it's like, how do you overcome that with your actions and also implementing these things personally? So you have to implement these things personally before you can expect the team or anybody else to do them as well.
All right. J_Imperial77. When are you having BTF Tony on the show?
I would love to have Tony on the show. We'd have to have like a disclaimer conversation with him ahead of time for language, or the episode would be a lot of beep, beep, beep. Like there'd be a lot of
just
that.
A lot of blanked out.
Just for us to keep the rating family friendly. But I would love to have Tony on the show. If he's ever in the DFW area, I'd love to go have dinner with him and have him on the podcast or have lunch or whatever Tony wants. But he has an open invite, and Tony's a good guy.
I love his New England accent whenever he's on Jocko's podcast. It's hysterical.
Oh, wicked.
Jason80790. How do you balance masculinity, leadership, warrior spirit without being arrogant or prideful?
See, I understand like the question, but I have a hard time connecting with his question because I don't see masculinity, leadership, or the warrior spirit with being arrogant or prideful, because good leaders are humble.
Yeah.
And, you know, masculine men help people, and they take care of people, and they provide for people, and they protect. So yeah, I don't see you being arrogant or prideful there. And like I said, good leaders, they do all the same thing. And the warrior spirit, it's like, hey, if you have the warrior spirit, going back to what we talked about, like what Jordan Peterson says, like, you know, like if you have the capability to do violence and you don't, like that's what I want.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have the capability to do violence and you don't, like, there's nothing out of it. You just can't. Like, there's nothing. Like, you're not controlling anything. There's, you know, you're not being arrogant. You're not being prideful. I mean, that arrogance and prideful comes from weak people. And when you're talking about someone who's masculine and a good leader and have the warrior spirit, they have humility. They've been humbled before, and the root of somebody wanting these traits is to serve the people around them.
Yeah.
It's the true roots of this is to serve and protect and provide for the people around them. So I don't think you have to balance it. It's just, hey, make sure you're being a good leader that, you know, is looking out for the people around them.
Yeah, I think a lot of the warrior spirit too, like people think it's all about looking for a fight, but more often than not, it seems like it's about trying to find resolutions that don't end that way.
Yeah.
Right. Is not being afraid of the conflict, but also helping people find the peaceful path. All right. Walper style, maybe some important first steps before going into business for yourself to limit failure when it inevitably kicks you in the squares.
So I understand that there is a sense of urgency to start a business because you have an idea, you have a proof of concept, and you're like, hey, we got to go because we want to make this happen. My advice is make sure you're doing as much due diligence as you can. And when you think you have all the information, realize that you probably have like 20%. Especially if you're starting a business and you don't have experience in this industry and or in business in general. That's why people go to school to get MBAs, to learn about business. If you don't go to school to get an MBA and you've never been a part of a business and you don't have business experience, you don't have leadership experience, you're going to struggle. You're not going to know the basics of business. And so that's why I would say, find mentors, find coaches, find a program that you can be a part of that shows you the ins and the outs. Do some online courses. Read as many different books as you can ahead of time. Seek advice and counsel from people in that industry or who have run businesses. Find mentors that you can lean on and bounce ideas past and get insight from them and feedback from them. And just understand that when you think you have all the information, you're probably at like 20% because business is going to throw you so many curveballs if you've never actually been in a business, like actually run a business, knowing how to do your books and understanding like what you have to do for taxes and receipts and expenses and what your actual, revenue is, what your actual expenses are, what are your actual profits, doing quarterly taxes. There's a lot of things, that people don't know that you're supposed to do for a business. And so you have to be seeking all these things out. You have to be studying the industry. And also just understand that part of doing business is making small iterative steps and educating yourself every single day.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got one question for you from all this because I know we're coming up against time. You mentioned in the beginning that a lot of people have used the principles of extreme ownership in their personal lives, weight loss, and that kind of thing. What does let me just rephrase. I'll do it the way I have it written down. How do you use cover and move as an individual? How can I cover and move for myself?
Well, so you have to interact with other people throughout your day, correct?
Sure.
You're married, you have a family,
Yep.
You're a pastor, you have a lot of stuff. Every person out there has to interact with another person throughout the day. Mm-hmm. So in regards to cover and move for weight loss, it's about having alignment.
Okay.
So if you are trying to be super strict on your diet, it's going to be having a conversation with your wife and say, hey, I need to be meal prepping all my meals until I hit this goal. And then we can go out to dinner.
Yeah.
Or if you go out to dinner with your wife, just explaining to her like, hey, I'm not getting dessert. I'm not drinking. I'm going to be I have to be strict on my diet because I have these goals in place.
Yeah, no Dr. Pepper tonight for me.
Yeah. And so it's like same thing when you go out with your buddies and just telling them like, hey guys, like I'm super strict on this diet. So here's the different places, hey, can we go to one of these places? Because I know if we go to these places, I can find something healthy to eat that aligns with my diet. And, understand your buddies blah, 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 like give you some pushback and be like, hey guys, my diet's really important to me. So if we can go to one of these places, cool. If not, hey, you guys go enjoy lunch. I'm going to go get lunch on my own.
Yeah.
It's setting those boundaries and understanding like, hey, you have to be clear with your communication in regards to what the goals are that you're trying to accomplish so that the people around you support you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I want to put myself in a place where I'm holding myself accountable. Yeah. I don't want anybody, nor do I need anybody else holding me accountable. But I position and paint myself into a corner to where they are going to naturally hold me accountable because of the things I do and or say with my friends and family, because of the alignment that I need to have with them.
Yeah.
The whole no drinking thing. Like, I don't care if you drink. It makes zero difference to me. But when was it? Oh, the other year, people came over for my birthday or whatever. I think it was for that. No, I can't. It was for something. Mm-hmm. And not one person drank. And I was like, why aren't people drinking? It was because I didn't drink anymore. Yeah. And I'm like, guys, I don't care. You can drink, So, that's all.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
All right. Makes sense.
Cool. Alignment. I've never heard and or met somebody that had problems in their life because they had too much alignment with the people around them.
Yeah, I can imagine. If everybody's on the same page, like we should be good, right?
Exactly. So, all right, we're going to close it out with some final thoughts. But before we do that, I just want to thank all the support each of you have given us by listening, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Make sure you are subscribed to us on YouTube so you can be notified when our YouTube exclusive episodes come out. If you want to follow us on social media, I am at JP Dinnell. That's 2 N's, 2 L's. Lucas is at LucaspiNckard. Make sure you're also following Echelon Front on social media. We are at Echelon Front. And when you want to learn more about what we do at Echelon Front, go to echelonfront.com. I look forward to seeing you guys at a future event or one of our instructors being able to come out and work with you guys and your company. We have the Women's Assembly coming up in September. I believe I just got a text message that the muster in Dallas is sold out. So
nice.
Yep, absolutely. Also check out Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA on Instagram and social media. It's a ministry I'm a part of. We have a podcast that has episodes that come out every Tuesday. We're doing different events once every 4 to 6 weeks at different gyms. We start off with a free Jiu-Jitsu seminar. Somebody shares their testimony, and then we open it up to open mat for some good training. I'm also a partner of a Texas beef company called Little Cattle Co.
Get that beef.
Yeah, dog. Our website is littlecattle.co, and we can deliver anywhere in the lower 48 states. We are a custom order beef company, which allows you to order exactly what you want each time based off the needs of your family. We also have a ground beef subscription plan as well that's pretty popular. We also just launched our new beef tallow products, which include body butter, tallow cream, lip balm. The feedback we've been getting from those is awesome. I personally use those as well. It's a nice little game changer. If you want to send your customers and or clients or family friends, or different people a custom order just as a gift to show them appreciation. Anytime throughout the year you can do that, and we'll also add a custom note to the order. You can ship us cards and we can add those to those boxes as well. Also a partner with a printing company called On the Path Printing on Instagram. We are at On the Path Printing. You can send us a message there and let us know what your apparel printing needs are, and if we can help support that, we would love to earn your business. Also partner with Leif and Jocko of a company called Bruiser Arms. Check us out on Instagram at Bruiser Arms. We're going to be providing training and gear, so make sure you are following us on there. Also want to thank Origin and Jocko Fuel, all the support that they've given us over the years. What they have done and what they are doing is absolutely incredible. If you want to get some of the best jiu-jitsu gear in the world and some of the best regular clothes that are all 100% American made, go to originusa.com, jockofuel.com to get the best supplements and the cleanest energy drinks out there. Hunt season's coming up, so if you want to be rocking in a 100% American made hunt line, go to originusa.com, check that out. Grab some of the jeans, some pants. The Moabs are pretty legit for work. The Nylox, just a general Nylox, like the Nylox straights. Oh man, it's
a good set of britches, huh?
They are. So just as we close it out, I just want to share with you this thought process that life is never going to be fair, and I know we all know that. But what I do know is that we can make the most of the opportunities that we have in front of us. I look to the different people in my life, like my father who lost his arm, who's struggling and, working to get his body healthy. It's a daily struggle. It's not an instant overnight fix, but you got to put the work in. I look at the different businesses and business owners that I work with. It's a struggle. You got to work. You got to put in the work every single day. To the different married couples that are out there that are struggling, that are having issues with their marriage, which we're all going to have. Divorce is not an option. Don't even let it be in your vocabulary, and understand like, hey, no matter what's happening, we're going to work through this together because life requires us to go out there and put in the work. So I hope that this episode has been a reminder for you to go out there, put in the work, and to never settle. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 48.